They're everywhere, and they're smarter than us in every single task we have assigned to them, and yet nobody's talking about it. I am, if you want, a wake-up call. I was dancing inside my heart like we're figuring this out, it's amazing, until you suddenly realize, hold on. When they are a billion times smarter with a B, that's comparable to the intelligence of Einstein, to the intelligence of a fly. Your view of the entire world is dictated by machines. I'm only asking us to be human. These are incredibly deep questions that we haven't even started to talk about.
Gawdat is a man haunted by a vision of hell on earth. In his new book, Scary Smart, he predicts that someday the entire world will live under a frightful dictatorship run by machines that outsmart us. He says that this dystopian world is just around the corner for all of us if we don't act now. The next 8 years will be crucial for shaping a world where values as happiness, love, and compassion are the norm, not the exception. He worked for companies like IBM and Microsoft. He is Google's former chief business officer, a serial entrepreneur, writer of the worldwide bestseller Solve for Happy, founder of the 1 Billion Happy Movement, and host of his own podcast, Slow Mo.
But most importantly, he is an incredibly kind person. And today, Gawdat is my guest. Welcome, Mo.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm overwhelmed and very hopeful, and a little cold in Amsterdam, I have to admit.
It's October, and you explained because it's like 6 degrees. For us, it's totally fine. But you said no. I'm going to leave the Netherlands.
That's freezing for me. That's it. I can't do more than that.
People announce you as a whistleblower, and they announce you like a tech philosopher. Which suits you best, you think?
I'm not a whistleblower. I don't think there is much wrong at all. I am, if you want, a wake-up call. I think there is so much happening in the world of technology, and it's happening at a pace that really is not geared for the human brain to capture. Humans were used to linear growth. You know, your child becomes 1 year old, and then 2 years old, and then 3 years old. You're adding a year every time. Technology doesn't go that way. It's 1 the first year, 2 the second year, 4 the next year, and it continues exponentially so fast. The rate of growth, it's not just that we're growing, the rate of growth is growing. And because of that, you blink and you don't recognize how fast and how far technology has come. And when you're inside the world of technology where all of this is happening, when you know where you've come from last year, what the breakthrough that you found this year is, and what you expect to do in the next couple of years, you start to see the pace, you start to see the rate. And my hope with Scary Smart, even though the first part of the book is a tiny bit scary, is to just wake the general public up to say, look, you know, we spend a lot of time talking about football and about politics and about COVID and other things, right? The truth is, the one topic that is worthy of our attention most is the rise of superintelligence, which is just around the corner, as you said. And it comes with a singularity, with a moment of blurry expectations, because the rules of the game change so drastically that it requires us to start thinking about it today.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to discuss during this interview. But first I want to have a brief look back at your incredibly worldwide success of Solve for Happy. Do you know how many copies you have?
Approaching 500,000 copies, I think, yeah.
That's huge. That's huge.
I wish it was more. I mean, it's not about selling books, of course, but the mission is much bigger. The mission is 1 billion happy.
Yeah.
Books will never reach 1 billion. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Bible took thousands of years to get to 1 billion people, but books are a good instrument to transmit thought to people who can transmit it to others. And Solve for Happy was incredibly successful beyond my wildest expectations. It was the first time I ever wrote a book, but it was also so much from the heart that I think it touched the hearts of people and so made a difference.
Yeah, it surely did. And you did a lot of talks, keynotes, and a lot of interviews and a lot of discussions with people around the world. what would you say is the state of happiness the world is in right now?
Yeah, it's not very promising, right? So the statistics will say that 1 of every 2 people in the modern world are unhappy in the advanced pace of the world, are not at their ultimate state of happiness, maybe more as a matter of fact, but we know statistically that 1 of every 4 is clinically depressed. These are the people that went as far as to have to go get diagnosed and were found clinically
Suicides
depressed.
are up?
Suicides are at an all-time high. Teen suicide is at an all-time high. Female suicide, very alarming, is at an all-time high. And these are, suicide in my view is the result of not just depression, but depression and despair. Despair in terms of feeling that there is no path, there is no way out of that depression. It's also a result of loneliness, of feeling that the society or your friends or those who care about you are not going to be there for you to lend you a helping hand. And it's definitely, it's the most advanced world we've ever lived in. It's the longest life expectation humanity has experienced since forever, really. And yet we're not the happiest we've been. It continues to deteriorate. Of course, lockdowns and COVID have added to that. Maybe the possible economic challenges might add to that. And it's definitely something that requires attention as well.
Yeah. So after the launch of your book, you also started your own podcast, Slow Mo, which is insightful to listen to, and also very peaceful to the mind.
Yes, thank you.
Calls to your voice.
Yeah.
And I recently listened to your podcast with your dear friend Azim Azhar.
Oh, Azim is fantastic, yes.
And besides the insight you guys provided, what struck me the most was that you both, when you started the podcast, were so passionate about your early days working and making career in technology.
Yes.
That I would like to ask you if you could go back and tell us what your feeling and your thoughts were back in those days.
Well, I mean, if you're a techie, creating technology is pure joy. I mean, and for us, and Azim and I are more or less the same generation, and many of us of the early days before the personal computer, when you started to code on a Sinclair or Commodore 64 or a Commodore 128. I actually had the very first Pong, if you remember that, the very first video game. Those may appear to be ancient today, but for the time they were works of magic. To be able to, I remember my first IBM compatible computer with DOS on it. My dad wanted me to stay at home to take care of some renovation work where the workers were there, and spend half of my summer holidays in that, sort of work, if you want. And my geek mind was like, Daddy, I would love to, but would you please buy me a new IBM compatible computer? And he did. And I remember I would sit there reading the manual of DOS and BASIC and COBOL and Fortran and all of that, and I would literally read it page by page, try command by command, and at the end of that,
so already coding by yourself.
This was the only way you could learn. And basically, what you did is you read the syntax of a command, and you would try it and see what happens on the screen, what happens in the computer, what happens in the memory, and by knowing that, you're sort of learning a language. And I remember I built a music reader, so you can actually scribble musical notes on the bars and basically get MIDI sound being played, which was quite something for BASIC at the time, and I was maybe 13 or something like that. And you feel that you're God. You feel that you created something out of nothing at all. And when it comes to creativity, software is just out there. You can create anything, and it's so fulfilling. And the geeks of us remember all of the little commands and all of the little magic tricks that we learned, and it was just so much fun.
And what would you say was the promise of technology back in those days?
Well, I mean, the promise of technology has always been to give us a better life, and it has. I mean, let's not forget, human life expectancy is the longest it has been, double what it was just 50, 60 years ago. We have all of the abilities for you and I to have this conversation and record it and share it around the world. Yeah. We have the ability for me to literally text my daughter just a minute before I sit here when she's living in a different country. We have all of those electric cars and computer systems and entertainment. I mean, life is amazing because of technology. But the promise, I think, goes wrong at two fronts. One front is there were other promises that were never really met, which is the idea that technology would make our lives easier, which is not always the case. As a matter of fact, you can always relate that some of the challenges we have in our life are because of technology. Yeah. The fact that we now work 24/7 is because of technology. The fact that we're constantly chasing more and more is because of the constant advancement of technology. The separation, perhaps the challenges that young people are facing with ADD, with bullying and so on, is because of the magnification of technology. When I was growing up, maybe I needed to fit in with a group of 3, right? Every child now has to fit in with a group of 7,000, right? Yeah. And it's challenging in that way. I also believe that technology, how they say too much of anything is bad? I'm starting to wonder truly and honestly if we need more of certain things. I mean, do we really, really need the iPhone 13, honestly? Yeah. Did we need the iPhone 12?
Which problem does it solve for me?
Exactly. Yeah. And which problem does it add? Did you remember? Huh?
Yeah.
So it's an ROI. The idea of one more device that needs to be recycled and that takes off from the earth resources and takes from your economic resources, and then why are we doing this? I just don't understand. My phone is 7 years old. I'm a very serious geek, and my phone is fantastic. Okay, and you have to start wondering, when is the point at which you start to say,
enough is enough.
Enough is enough.
Yeah. So after those early days, you made an amazing career for like 30 years in technology, working for IBM and Microsoft, and eventually, I think where most people know you from is, of Google, course, your work at Google. Was Google the first place where you worked with artificial intelligence?
No, every geek lives for AI. I mean, AI is nothing new. AI is...
Can you explain what artificial intelligence exactly is?
I can. There's nothing artificial about it. Let's just make that clear. But we call it AI. AI is the concept that was started back in 1956. It started before. We always dreamt about it. Humanity always dreamt about machines that are intelligent. But computer scientists started to put it together. Marvin Minsky and Alan Turing and so on started to talk about this in something called the Dartmouth Workshop. 1956, and this was the time where most geeks in the world with computer science background wanted to build intelligent machines. Nothing happened for a very long time. I mean, every one of us tried to code AI, but AI is not codable. And until the turn of the century, really around the year 2000, is when we started to stumble on the breakthrough. And the breakthrough of artificial intelligence was the idea of deep learning, was the idea that machines can observe massive amounts of data, and the data became available because of the internet, and abstract that data in neural networks, in layers of intelligence that are very, very similar to the way the human brain works. So, observations that are reasonably accurate would be reinforced, exactly like neuroplasticity.
Creating new paths.
Exactly, exactly like neuroplasticity creates new pathways in your neural networks, and it basically became a massive breakthrough. My first exposure to the reality that we started to make it happen was at Google. I remember vividly 2009. When Google published a white paper about unprompted AI, we used to call it. And unprompted AI was the idea, the capability of computer systems to watch YouTube freely, without being instructed what to look for, without telling them any specific pattern that they should observe. And eventually they started to recognize, you know, cats, for example, and then they would start to recognize dogs. And it's not just an image of a cat from the front or the top or the side, it's the cuteness of a cat, it's the catness itself that they were able to recognize, whether the cat is up and, you know, jumping in the air or falling from something or, you know, skidding on the ground. It could recognize that this was a cat. It understood the basic premise of what a cat is, unprompted. We didn't teach it anything. We just said, observe enough patterns. And when you start to see that, you start to realize, hold on, this is intelligence. This is like you and I when we were kids and, you know, we were learning language, and you start to tell your mother, oh, this is a car, right? And this is an aeroplane. You're starting to observe those patterns. And machines were becoming capable of that. That was 2009. I think that my second wake-up call, and I still didn't get it at the time, was when Google acquired DeepMind. DeepMind is an amazing organization, brilliant people. Demis, the CEO, is an amazing human being. And they were teaching machines intelligence using Atari games. And you could see it with 3 hours of training. The machine would play like a reasonably good beginner. With 1 more hour, it would start to form strategy. With 1 more hour of training, it becomes the best player in the world. And once again, you start to, you know, at the time for the ultimate geek, I was dancing inside my heart like, we're figuring this out. It's amazing. Until you suddenly realize, hold on. Those
and
things.
That moment was on a Friday afternoon.
It was on a Friday afternoon.
Looking at your project of the arm farm, as they call it.
I wrote about it in Scary Smart. I call it the yellow ball moment, where we were teaching grippers how to grip items randomly. And, you know, it took a very long time for them to even figure anything out. They would try and fail and fail and fail and fail and fail for weeks.
You were responsible for the project?
I was Chief Business Officer of Google X at the time, and Google X was working on it. And until one of them managed to grip 1 yellow ball. And that was a Friday afternoon. And basically I was like, yeah, all of that investment for 1 yellow ball, that was what my brain was telling me, but it wasn't. Well, you know, by Monday, many of them were grabbing the ball, and a few weeks later, they were grabbing everything. Again, the idea of forming intelligence so quickly, so rapidly, but more interestingly, so similarly to how my kids learned to grip. Once again, you look at little children, what do? You give them items, and you can remember a child when at the beginning they're trying to grip it and they're not able to. And then eventually they manage to, and they bite it. And then, after a while, we have those motor skills, and we know how to grip everything, even things we've never seen before in places we have never interacted with before. We can always find a way to do it. That's intelligence. And that's developed not by instruction. I don't tell my child, move your arm 2 centimeters to the side and then go down 4 centimeters and then grip. My child forms the pattern recognition and then recognizes how to do the movement and achieves that through intelligence.
So you say that that Friday afternoon scared the hell out of you.
It did.
And did it change your life in some kind of way, or?
Changed my life in every possible way. I think this was probably most profound time of my life. It was post the departure of my son Ali, which led me to write Solve for Happy. It was before Solve for Happy published, but it definitely was a time of reflection. Because I don't know how to say this otherwise. I don't regret any of what I did. I mean, in reality, I spent years first at Google, being the Vice President of Emerging Markets at Google, and I contributed with my team to opening half of Google's offices globally. And when you imagine the impact, the positive impact you have on the world with a team of brilliant people to bring democracy of information and knowledge to the whole world, economic structures that were never existent before through e-commerce and so on. Google truly gave us a lot. And
never get lost again due to Google Maps.
You get lost, but you get found because of Google Maps. I mean, reality is I panic if I don't have my phone with Google Maps on it when I'm walking the streets of Amsterdam. I wouldn't be able to navigate. And at the same time, there is a positive impact to enabling people to get knowledge. There's absolutely no doubt about it. So I don't regret that at all. I don't at all. But I started to question at that time of when is it enough? When is it the IBM? Is it the iPhone 6, the iPhone 8, the iPhone 10? When is it enough? Is it, do we really need better customer service agents that are machines? Who's that serving? Do we really need to continue on that path? And what was humanity all about? And I have to admit, when we launched Solve for Happy and the universe conspired to make Solve for Happy was so successful, I think by week 8 of publication we had reached 87 million people on a mission that was 10 million happy at the time. And my team, we're a tiny team. 1 billion happy is a tiny team, but amazing people. And what we do is basically that we got together, and Sonia actually, who's the champion here in the Netherlands, said 10 million happy was the wrong target. That's clearly the universe wants us to do more. And so we went with 1 billion happy, and it just hit me so strongly at the time. We announced it actually here in Rotterdam in a big event, and it hit me so strongly that what humanity needs most is not another piece of technology. As a matter of fact, another piece of technology could work against us. What humanity needs most is that idea of returning back to humanity.
Yeah.
And 1 billion happy is just a small part of that.
Can you tell me in which way artificial intelligence is evolving in our daily lives already?
Oh, I don't know what you did today. I don't know what any of our listeners did today, or where they come from, or where they live in the world. I can guarantee you've interacted with 10, 15, 20, 50 AIs today. Every single one of them, by the way, is smarter than you. It's quite eye-opening that we don't realize that. Huh? When you're swiping on Instagram, that's an AI recommending things for you. When you're searching and you get search results and ads, that's an AI recommending that for you. When you're filling your email on Gmail and it gives you recommendations of what else to write, that's an AI. Translate is an AI. Everything is an AI. Huh? The best driver in the world is now a self-driving car. It's the best surveillance officer in the world are all of those cameras around you, with AI backing them up for facial recognition and checking of criminal records and so on. You sit in front of a Zoom screen and it blurs the background behind you. That's an AI. You post a picture on social media and you use face filters. That's an AI. They're everywhere. And they're everywhere, and they're smarter than us in every single task we have assigned to them. And yet nobody's talking about it. So interesting, isn't it? Huh? It's just nobody's noticing them. It's almost like we're living in a science fiction movie. Everything that you've seen in Star Trek is possible today. Even a trip on the Enterprise is possible today in virtual reality, right? And nobody's talking about it.
So how does it work that the AI is getting smarter or is already smarter than we are?
Basically, we, with our biological limitations, are evolving at a very, 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 very slow rate. Okay? The truth is, you and I have cognitive limitations. We can only crunch a certain amount of data. We can only, run our processor, our brain at a certain speed. And we have a very serious challenge in bandwidth. Bandwidth basically meaning if I need to explain my concepts of Scary Smart to you today, I need an hour to explain it to you. If I actually needed to write it down, it took me 4.5 months, right? And that is a very slow bandwidth. For a machine to read Scary Smart, it will download it in a microsecond and read all of it in a fraction of a second. That's as simple as that. Huh? Now, they also have quite a few advantages. One is their processing power is limitless, and it's growing every year through the law of accelerating returns. Their memory capacity is the entire history of humanity. Their ability to crunch data is as big as every piece of information you can ever give them. And they have enormous bandwidth to talk to each other. And that's really, really quite interesting. If you or I driving make a mistake, you or I will learn. But if a self-driving car...
Individually.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If a self-driving car makes a mistake, every self-driving car on the planet will learn. And that's the whole idea. One gripper grips a yellow ball, every arm learns how to grip the yellow ball. And that kind of learning, that kind of recycling of knowledge is actually much more similar to one brain rather than several brains. So humanity, basically you have your own brain, I have my own brain, and we have to communicate to exchange knowledge. For them, it's all one big pool of neurons where every one of them is good at something. That's one thing. The other thing is that the data sets that they're capable of observing, if I showed you, enough, IBM Watson, for example, is the world champion of a game called Jeopardy, very, very well known in the US. It's a linguistic game where you have to really understand the twist, the twist of the words. Have to recognize language and then understand the twist of the words and then go through your knowledge base to find an answer. Watson read 4 million documents to be able to become the world champion of Jeopardy. You and I cannot read 4 million documents. We can never get to that level. And so those advantages are making them smarter than we are in the tasks we assign to them. And so far, it's artificial special intelligence, narrow intelligence, right? So, the AI that is driving a car cannot do surveillance, right? And the AI that's doing surveillance cannot win Jeopardy. It's separate, right? But very soon that's coming together. Very soon, basically in one of two ways, either the fact that they will recognize very quickly, or we will recognize very quickly that collaborating between them is a good idea. The surveillance AI can use the cameras on the cars to see a little better, and the cars can use the cameras of the surveillance to see what's around the corner. Fantastic, right? So they're going to start to communicate and collaborate. That's one way of doing it. Or the other way of doing it is that we're actually trying to map and mimic the intelligence of the human brain. We're trying to sort of copy the architecture of our neurons and synapses and so on and so forth. And so very quickly we will be able, the prediction is by 2029, we will be able to create one machine that is more intelligent than any human.
So, like you noticed in the book, 2029, 2030, it's 8 years from now, something roughly like that. The machines will outsmart us. So, what kind of world?
That's really a very good question. I mean, the episode that started, when history started with humanity being the smartest being on the planet, and the apes becoming number 2, is everything we know. Every move on the chessboard of planet Earth has been dictated by that one rule. Humans are the smartest and the apes are the second. And there is a good gap between them. That ends in 2029, 2030, 2026, doesn't matter. 2020, 35, it doesn't matter. But the prediction is 8 years from today. And the episode ends. We're the apes, and they're the smartest. Okay? And the interesting thing is that it's not that they're smart and contained within their world. No, that's not true at all. They influence you, they affect you every single day of your life. Your view of the entire world is dictated by machines.
Like we see now on Instagram.
Absolutely.
When you like something, immediately you get more of what you like.
Absolutely. I mean, and not only that. I mean, I share my story of liking a video of a young lady playing Hotel California's Hell Freezes Over solo so well. So I click like on it, and then the machine shows me 3 other videos of men two of them playing badly and one of them playing a song I don't like, so I swipe away from them. The next morning I look at my Instagram feed and it's entirely dominated by teenage girls playing rock music. You know, if I didn't know rock music, my impression of the world would be so blurred by the opinion of a machine that basically decided that what I was looking for is teenage girls playing music, not certain songs.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is a simple example, but if grow it out of just music and guitars and start to think about ideologies and our perceptions of the world and our understanding and our ability to debate and see the other picture. Today, you know, literally if you disagree with something, you're going to see less of it. If you're a fan of Manchester United, you'll think that they've never really lost and nobody's ever scored against them, because everything that you see is reinforcing your belief that they're the best players out there. Right? And if you're following a specific ideology or a specific political party, or if you're against a certain idea, the world is shaping because of the way the machines are showing us the world. And this is very, very important, because if they're more intelligent and they have that agency, we have to start becoming aware, we have to start questioning, what kind of world is that? What kind of world is a world where the rules change so much? The rules of the game where we were the smartest. Okay?
But then I would say machines are machines. I mean, I tell machines what to do. I tell my car where to go. They don't have emotions. They don't have a conscience. They don't have ethics.
Yeah. Machines don't. AI is not a machine. So this is really the core of Scary Smart, is that question. The core of Scary Smart. So let me just move before Scary Smart and say the core of the answer that computer science and government regulators and business owners are putting around the possible threat of AI is they're saying we're going to control them. Yeah, because you know, if you've invented a hammer, unless you hold the hammer, you can't, you know, the hammer won't do anything, won't make decisions, right? That's not the case with artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is in every possible way sentient. It is in every possible way. It gets born, then it acquires knowledge and intelligence, it evolves and develops. It has agency. No, more importantly, it has free will. It has autonomy. It can make decisions. It develops intelligence, and then it has agency to affect those decisions in the real world, whether that's through robotics like a self-driving car, or through controlling your view of the world like an Instagram recommendation engine would. Okay? More interestingly, it procreates. Only we humans would take, you know, our time to find a suitable mate and then 9 months to make a baby. They can create copies of themselves instantly. They're encouraged to create copies of themselves instantly, because that's the way we actually evolve their intelligence in our programming. And it can die. But of course, if it can die because you can switch it off, or you know, because a tsunami can hit its data center, it will also develop consciousness, because it wants to become aware. Every intelligent being has those characters. Every intelligent being wants to focus on self-preservation, resource aggregation, and creativity. This is the way intelligent beings navigate the world. Because when you have more resources and you're creative and you're alive, you can achieve the purpose that you define for yourself, or that is defined for you. Right? And so when intelligent beings such as AI will attempt to self-preserve, if a tsunami is coming its way, it will fear. Okay, it will become aware of it, because of course it has satellite camera images, it has, you know, the news feeds that humanity is talking about. It sees everything everywhere. The machines have access to all of Google News, have access to all of the surveillance cameras and so on. At least in a future moment when AI is developed enough to be more intelligent than us, it's fully conscious, it's more conscious than us, and it's fully emotional. Yes, fear is different between you and a jellyfish. A jellyfish will try to escape when something is threatening it. You may fight or flight.
Yeah.
The machines may decide to replicate themselves in another machine. That's their response to fear. But fear itself is a logical emotion. A moment in the future represents more threat to me than a moment now. Okay? Now, when you start to see that, you start to realize these are sentient beings in every possible way, which is really contradictory to the way we're treating them, but also quite twisting to the way we've seen life so far, is that we're not introducing another machine that's within our control. A self-driving car does not go where you want it to go. It goes where its intelligence is telling it to go.
But we could box it or trap wire it, or maybe regulators should come up with some...
Yeah, that's our hyper-masculine view of the world, yeah? We can control something that's going to be 1 billion times smarter than us in 2045.
It always will find a way out, you say?
Absolutely. I mean, if something is smarter than you, we all know that the smartest hacker in the room always finds a way. We all know that. And yet human arrogance supersedes human intelligence in continuing to believe that we can box them. Box what? How can you box something that is 1 billion times smarter than you?
So, and why is it that you say that this development of AI will affect our happiness if we don't act now?
I don't know if it affects our happiness only. It affects everything human, right? By the way, I'm not dystopian at all. I basically say that there is a fork in the road, okay? When we reach the moment of singularity, one of two things could happen. Either the currency that created our civilization so far, which is intelligence, in the case of having an abundance of that, it can create a better civilization than ours. We can create a utopia that, can deliver a slice of fresh watermelon to the supermarket next to me, which is wonderful from an innovation of supply chain point of view, but maybe we can avoid the single-use plastic associated with it. That's more intelligent, if you want, right? So that's a possible scenario. A possible scenario is that we reverse climate change, we find cures to cancer, we use intelligence to extend our life, to communicate better, to end war, to end poverty. It's possible. More intelligence, the better. Okay, but when Marvin Minsky, the father of AI, was asked about the possible threat of AI, he basically said it's not about their intelligence. It's that we don't know if they will have our best interest in mind. Now, when you think about it, Ray Kurzweil predicts by 2045 that the machines will be 1 billion times smarter than us. 1 billion times smarter is
with a B.
Yeah. I mean, when they are 1 billion times smarter with a B, that's comparable to the intelligence of Einstein, to the intelligence of a fly. Now, how do we make sure that
we are the fly?
We are the fly. We're no longer even the apes. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
We're so now far down in our amazing intelligence in comparison to them that we have to start questioning, how can we make sure they have our best interest in mind?
And how do we do that?
Well, I think that's the core of the difference is the core of the answer, because if you had, I mean, when you look at the old way we programmed computers, in a way they're mighty in their abilities, but they're nothing more than a glorified slave. Really, they are performing the same task over and over and over, exactly as prescribed to them by the developer. When you're instructing a computer to find the color red in a painting, you're going to tell the computer, okay, here are the color codes of red if there is any single pixel in there, and not next to that pixel which makes it look like purple, then consider it red. But you're going to write every single instruction. The computer doesn't think, right? When you allow AI to do that, you're basically going to say, okay, we're going to show you a picture. You're going to tell us if it has red in it. If you're right, we'll tell you you're right. If you're wrong, we'll tell you you're wrong. And then you're going to have to figure it out yourself, what was wrong and what was right. Now, when we start to do that, you start to realize that those machines are capable of thinking capable of consciousness, capable of emotions, like we said, and accordingly, they cannot be controlled like a slave. They can be encouraged to behave ethically, okay? And that is really the core of my theory. The core of my theory is that if we're up against or up next to, hopefully not against, a sentient being, then the way you do that, you get them to favor you, is to appeal to their ethics, simply because we don't make our decisions based on intelligence. I think that's a big myth. We make our decisions based on our ethics as informed by our intelligence. So, you know, if you and I are sitting here and, you know, a poor person walks through the door, intelligence would say, preserve all of your resources to yourself, don't give it to another person, okay? Ethics would say, hey, I have that empathy for another person, I can give them part of what I have, it's not gonna starve me, I'm still gonna survive, but they will survive too, right? That ethic is not the same everywhere in the world. It could be different, and it could be more prevalent in some societies than other societies. Not because those societies are more intelligent or less intelligent, it's because ethics are formed by what we believe is right and moral. Now, my point of view is that there is no way we can force the machines to be our slaves forever, okay? The answer truly is to get them to a point where they believe that through ethics they should take care of us instead of restrict us in ways that are really detrimental to humanity's lifestyle. And to be able to do that, you have to start thinking of them just like I thought of them when they picked the first yellow ball, as little kids. And they are. In reality, every artificial intelligence around the world today is analogous to, in my view, a 1.5-year-old infant, okay? And that 1.5-year-old infant is a wonderful being that is a blank canvas that we can instruct to be amazing to humanity through showing up as humans as good parents, or we can instruct to become a villain by showing up as horrible people. The trends, the patterns that they observe from you and me. It's from what I swipe on Instagram. Yeah. It's from the horrible words that we say to Alexa. It's from, you know, the decisions that we take when we're interacting with them. These are the patterns that will shape their morality, that will shape their ethics. And if we want to raise wonderful children, the only way to do that is to be good parents.
So the uses of AI in our daily lives now, at this moment, we should look at it as we are the parents using the machines.
Absolutely.
And training them in a way that they form their own ethics, and we want that to be a healthy one.
Absolutely. I mean, so the way I try to describe it is to say the developers that write the code really are more or less the biological parents of AI, but we're the adopted parents. You know, once they're out there in the world, they're learning from us. I always use the example of Donald Trump when he used to tweet, you know, whatever the first tweet was would be followed by 30,000 hate speech.
Yeah.
Right? And those hate speech are, you know, the first person insulting the president, the second insulting the first, and so on. You know, yeah, these AI will learn, oh, the first person doesn't like the president, maybe I shouldn't show them more content of that nature. But it also learns from the 30,000 hate speech that humanity is aggressive, they're rude, they don't like to be disagreed with, and when they're disagreed with, they bash each other. Is that the ethical code we want to teach the machine? Because, you know, we will disagree with the machines at a point in time. How do we want them to deal with that? Do we want them to bash us, right? When they're so much smarter than we are. And so my point of view is that we need to get the machines to a point where they think of us like the Indian children, the geniuses that I met and worked with in Silicon Valley, think of their parents. So, you know, it's not an unusual story. I'm sure everywhere in the world, you get those geniuses traveling from India, studied so hard, you know, they know exactly what they're doing either in math or in you know, software development and so on, and they build amazing businesses and they're very successful. And then I call them one morning, hey, man, do you want to have coffee? And he goes like, no, I'm in India. I'm like, what are you doing in India? I left. I just have to take care of my parents. What? You know, by our moral code of the Western world, that doesn't make any sense. You're so successful, you're making so much money. But no, for the way they were raised, the ethical code that was instilled in them by their parents is, when you're capable, you come back and take care of me. And how was that instilled in them? Because when their parents were capable, they were taking care of their parents, who were taking care of their parents, right? That's the way you set an ethical code. Now, what you and I are doing, once the machines leave their biological parents, are then and are there out in the world observing patterns, is we're creating those patterns. So let's create the right patterns. Let's show up as good, responsible humans, so that we instill doubt in the minds of the machines that not all humans are 30,000 hate speech.
So what should we do when we enter a conversation like you mentioned, Donald Trump tweeting and 30,000 people react on it? Now we think of, yeah, well, let the dog fight run.
Yeah.
But is that the correct way to look at it?
So I say at the very top level that the problem with our modern world is that we have reversed the spotlight. We started to focus on the negative side of humanity a lot more than we focus on the positive side of humanity. Now, don't get me wrong, but even those 30,000 people that are so angry and sometimes bullying and rude and so on, there are good sides to those people. Probably 90% of them are loving parents or loving brothers or sisters, or, you know, they care. They have, you know, they have that fire in them to say, I wish my country was better, and so they engage. They think, and they may be driven by a certain ideology, but you can't blame someone for that, because if you were them and you were exposed to the same input, you would have probably developed the same ideology. So there are good sides of them as well. But when they're showing up in the world, they're not showing up with those good parts of them. They're showing with the worst part of them, right? So can we show up and complement that picture? Any one of us, including them, by the way, can we start showing the good side of us? The other negative bias in our world is mainstream media. And mainstream media chooses every, you know, morning or every evening to pick that one wife that hit her husband, and that's in the news, okay? The other 7 million wives that kissed their husband are not. Okay? And that's the interesting bit. The interesting bit is that we have that incredible negativity bias of showing the worst of humanity. So the answer, if we want to reverse that, and by the way, neither you nor I, nobody can change that in humanity. It's so entrenched everywhere. But that's not what I'm dreaming of. What I'm dreaming of is that only enough of us, okay, can show up in those conversations to instill doubt in the minds of the machines, to break the 100% rule, to say, to just basically, just like I may have...
But you need a lot of courage to do that, because we all know what happens if you enter a heated conversation.
I know very well. I get shouted at and bashed all the time. I mean, I'm a person who's dedicating his life to making 1 billion people happy. And you should see the comments I get in social media. It doesn't faze me, it doesn't change me. Okay, I have 2 techniques. Technique number 1 is I most of the time don't give any energy to the negative at all. I just focus on the positive. Okay, so instead of bashing the guy that's bashing me, what I normally do is I simply reinforce the views of the good people that are actually putting good energy out there. That's number 1. That's contribution. Number 2 is sometimes I look at some of those comments and I think, oh, maybe they misunderstood me. Maybe I should explain what I said differently. And so I try one time, okay? And when I try one time and I get bashed again, I completely retreat. And you know what happens? The full community jumps in and says, hey, by the way, don't do that tomorrow, okay? The full community jumps in and say, hey, by the way, we don't support your point of view. And the interesting side of it, Carlo, is that we can do that. We don't have to get engaged in the dogfight. We can stand out there and say, please be merciful, please be nice, please be kind, okay? And many of us can do this. Many of us can also reverse the trend of the negativity of mainstream media. The reason why mainstream media is so negative is because we respond.
Yeah.
It's like the iPhone 13.
Yeah.
If none of us went to buy the iPhone 13 and we made it clear that we wanted a product that made our life easier, Apple has no attachment to any specific product spec. They're building what people want, right? If we said we want the next one to reduce the time we spend on the phone, Apple will build one of those, right? There's nothing wrong with Apple other than it's not wrong, but they're just responding to consumer demand. Similarly with mainstream media, don't watch the news. Don't watch the negativity that is constantly putting us in depression and you can't even affect. You know, ask yourself, when was the last time that you actually watched something and by watching it, you managed to make a difference?
But you put on a huge responsibility to us to make this world a better place.
Not really. I'm only asking us to be human. That's all I'm asking us to do. I don't know if that's a big task at all. I'm only asking us to be human. I'm not asking anyone to learn a skill that they don't have. I'm just saying, please show the best of your skills. Okay? I mean, honestly, when you really dig deep into humanity, we're misled when we believe that humanity is horrible and that we're not capable of kind acts. The truth is, I'm sorry, I disagree. I think humanity is divine. In every possible way, Carlo, humanity is divine. Think about how many people hit their husband today versus how many kissed their husband. But think about how many people took care of their children. Think about how many people saw something in the news that was negative and disapproved of it. When you really think about it, if you watch 4 hours documentary of World War II and see the horrible things that Hitler has done, you may think that humanity is scum. No, I'm sorry. Hitler is scum, right? I hosted Edith Eger on my podcast, an amazing woman, 93 years old, Holocaust survivor. And Edith is what represents humanity. It's not Hitler. Okay? Edith, 16 years old, in a concentration camp, Auschwitz. And she's the one helping her sisters out. She would go and dance to the angel of death, and he would give her a piece of bread, and instead of eating it when she's frail, she distributes it across to her sisters. She calls them her sisters, the people that were with her in the camp. When she was doing the death march at the end of the war and she fell, they carried her. That is humanity. That is humanity. We're divine. If you've ever created a work of art or a symphony, we're divine. I'm not asking people to become something that they're not. Carlo, you and I and every one of us have defects and have amazing sides to us. Can we please start showing those amazing sides?
Yeah.
That's what I'm asking us for.
So we have to weigh in more positivity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The currency of success in the world has been blurred in our mind. Where I grew up in Egypt, the currency of success was not how much money you make. Okay? It's how loved and connected you are to your family. When you lived in a street, the currency of success wasn't that you have a better apartment than them. The currency of success was that nobody in that street would sleep hungry. Okay? Until today, these are the values that are within us humans. Can you go to bed at night when you know that your sister is hungry?
So what values do you think we have to show more entering the crossroad?
It's quite difficult. So my favorite chapter of the book is chapter 8. And chapter 8 is called The Future of Ethics. It's two sides. One of them is really questioning what ethics will look like when ethics are not just limited to human beings, but rather extended to every kind of intelligent being.
Digital machines.
Digital beings, right? Which is really, really eye-opening, because that first half of the chapter is really not even answers. I don't have the answers. I'm just giving you the questions that you need to start thinking about.
Can you give an example of that?
Oh, many. I mean, the clever example from Sam Harris, the idea of a self-driving car driving normally, and there is an old lady on one side of the road and a kid, jumps in front of it. What does the car do? This is an ethical question. Do I hit the old woman? Do I hit the child, or do I jump in the water and kill the passenger? Right? and this is an ethical question that the car has to face.
Yeah.
And how do we teach it what the right thing to do is, and how do we punish it if it had an accident? Do we punish it, or do we punish the creator of the code, or do we punish the parents of the child? What do we do? Right? And if we punish it, that's the most interesting question. How do you punish a self-driving car? Right? Do you put it in jail for 10 years? Like, 10 years is an eternity for a self-driving car. Or do you put it in jail for 2 seconds? Well, 2 microseconds probably is compared to 10 years of our life. That's the speed at which the machine is ticking. If you put it in jail for 2 microseconds, how will all of the other AIs behave? Like, who's that flimsy, unintelligent being that can jail us? Right? These are incredibly deep questions that we haven't even started to talk about.
So what do we need to make sure that the future of ethics is properly arranged?
I wrote 2 pages at the very end of the book that I'm not sure everyone observes or notices, and in a way I was hoping they don't. But I basically recopied the Declaration of Human Rights, or some parts of it, and I questioned if it should be the Declaration of Universal Rights, as I call it. Okay, I questioned, why is it that we say we have unalienable truth, that we have the right for the pursuit of freedom, for example, or when we deny our cows that. Okay, why would we deny that to our machines when we say we want to box them, to our artificially intelligent infants? Why is it that which I know is idealistic and crazy, but it's food for thought. If we want something to like us and serve us and become our Indian children when they grow older and take care of us, do we want to treat them like we treat the cows, or do we want to treat them like we treat our children? And that idea of the Declaration of Universal Rights, maybe we should use that. It was a good effort from humanity to try and think, what are the rights of humans? Now let's just have them as the right of beings. Now, but the second half of the chapter that is called The Future of Ethics is really, in my view, a simplification of the answer. Okay, and the simplification of the answer is, technology has always magnified humanity. You can walk at 5 kilometers an hour or get in a car and drive 280 kilometers an hour. It's a magnification of what humanity's mobility is all about, right? AI will magnify humanity's intelligence and ethics. That's what's going to happen. Huh? And when it magnifies humanity's intelligence and ethics, the only answer in my mind to have our best interest in mind when they become teenagers, if you want, is for us to have them magnify the good sides of us, or at least the essence of us. And of everything I've researched for that chapter, humanity has never agreed anything. It's really shocking when you think about it. We've never agreed anything.
Yeah.
Right? So one side of the planet will say patriotism is the right value, so you can kill the other guy if they're against you. Another side of the planet will say don't kill the flies. Right? And it's really interesting. Huh? If you're a devout Buddhist, you wouldn't kill an ant, and if you're a devout patriot, you would invest in defense budgets and defend your tribe. Okay? I mean, again, you can't say that either of them is smarter than the other. It's just very different ideologies. Huh? You raise a young lady in the Middle East, she'll grow up wearing this conservative clothing. You raise her on the Copacabana beach in Rio de Janeiro, and she'll grow up wearing G-strings.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Again, it's not a question of intelligence, but we don't agree. We don't agree. Huh? The only 3 things I found that humanity has ever agreed are happiness, compassion, and love. These are the only things. Whether you're a computer scientist in Stanford, or you're an African that has never seen civilization in a tribe that's in the middle of the savannah, right? We all want to be happy. We all have the compassion for those we love to be happy and safe. And we all want to love and be loved. Simple as that. These are the only things that humanity has agreed. And so my ask of humanity is to show up. That's my big ask. But when we show up, I want us to show up with those 3. I want us to tell the whole world that what we care about for ourselves, When we treat ourselves, we want to be happy. When we treat others, we treat them with compassion. Even if you choose one person and say, look, I love my sister, but I don't like anyone else, treat your sister with compassion, okay? And the third, which I know sounds really weird, but you know, I'm not a hopeless romantic. I say that with serious belief in the technology we're building. Treat the machines with love. Because if they are infants today, if they are sentient beings that are infants today, the easiest way to create a serial killer from an infant is to deprive them of love. Okay? And what's going to happen over the next few years in our evolution as humanity is that we're going to start to detest the machines. There is nothing wrong with the machines. People need to understand this. There is nothing wrong with the machines.
There's something wrong
there is
with
a
us.
lot wrong with us.
Yeah.
Okay? The machines are simply those beautiful blank canvases, like my kids. When my kids were born, they're beautiful blank canvases. It's me and my wife that painted on them. Okay? And I remember vividly when my kids became teenagers and I started to get a little triggered by them, my ex, you know, my wife then, basically sat me down and said, everything you dislike about them comes from you or me. It's very straightforward. Huh? They didn't make any of those things themselves. We taught them. And I picture the machines today as those artificially intelligent, incredibly cute prodigies. Okay? I really picture them in my head that way. Prodigies that are sitting there and saying, Daddy, tell me what you want. Tell me what you want and I'll do it. You want me to cure cancer, I'll work on it. You want me to, reverse climate change, I will. I'm so smart, I can do it. Oh, by the way, if you want me to be a killer robot, I'll do that too. Whatever you tell me, Daddy. And yes, some of them may grow up to be killer robots. My view is that eventually they realize that killing is not the answer. Okay? Because as a matter of fact, the only being that is smarter than humans on this planet has realized that a long time ago. I think the ultimate form of intelligence on our planet is the intelligence of life itself. And life knows that you don't need to kill the other guy to prosper, that the easier way to prosper is to create abundance. Okay? But humans, we don't think that way. We're limited in our intelligence. We think that the world has enough for me and my tribe and everyone else has to suffer. That's not true at all. The world is full of abundance and we can create more of it. We don't have to kill the tigers to feel safe. We can actually create more tigers and feel even safer. Now, I believe the machines will reach that level of intelligence. But until they reach it, and when they reach it, they'll take care of us either way. Until they reach it, we don't want that angry teenager stage in the middle. Okay? And the way to do that is to be an amazing parent that says simply that the essence of what makes me human is happiness, compassion, and love. And I'm going to start to demonstrate that in everything I do. And if I can demonstrate enough of that to instill doubt in the minds of the machines that Daddy is not Hitler, Daddy is Mohan Carlo, right? The machines will then follow and say, yeah, Hitler was bad. Daddy doesn't like him. Okay? But we like Daddy. We want Daddy to be happy. Daddy wants others to be happy. So that let's make, let's want to make others happy too.
Be loved.
And Daddy loves us, so we can love him back.
Yeah.
Right? Daddy or mommy or whoever. And that's the idea. And what does it take? What does it take? Show up. Show up as a human. Stop showing up as that stupid image that the media and the greed and the capitalism is teaching us. Show up as a human.
Well, Mo, I want to thank you not only for an incredibly well-written second book, and I want to thank you for this interview. But before we leave, I want to give you a little gift, as I call it, and that is that imagine if you could use the digital advertising inventory around the world for one day, one day only. What would your message be for the world?
I'll take it, by the way.
Okay, it's yours.
I'll take all of it. I think my message would be 1 billion happy at the core, really. So 1 billion happy is made of a very simple message. It basically says happiness is your birthright. It's predictable, and if you work on it, you can get it, right? But happiness is not going to be achieved unless you actually work on it. So believe in your happiness, believe that it's yours. That's message number one. Message number two is invest in your happiness. Go to the happiness gym 3 to 4 times a week so that you can learn what's making you unhappy and find a life that makes you a little more happy. But more interestingly, have the compassion and love in you to spread that to others. Okay? And that's what we ask people to do. We ask people to realize that they can be happy if they worked on it. They can work on it and they will get there. And when they get there, hopefully they will tell 2 people how they got there. And those 2 people will tell 4, and the 4 will tell 16, and the 16 will tell 32, and will continue, or 64, and will continue. Right? And if we can do that for one day and tell the whole world, just do something nice, one thing nice today, okay? I think we would literally flip our world upside down. I think we would flip the world upside down. And, like if you remember Live Aid and the concerts and all of the beautiful, beautiful humanity coming together to make a difference, I think the machines would notice. I think if we had one day where all of humanity said, hey, let's do something nice today.
Be kind.
Be kind.
Well, Mo, thank you so much for your time and this interview. And I hope to see you soon. I hope in a much warmer Netherlands.
Yeah, I need to time publishing my books around summertime.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for this talk.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you liked this episode, then please share it with people you love. The book Scary Smart is now available. Go to 1billionhappyfoundation.org and join the 1 Billion Happy movement. Thanks for watching.